was like over double the capacity. It's about 300 barrels a day. Closer to 700. And the powers to be have estimated that in that area that it can.
Let me check.
Mr. Hudson, you get down on time?
Not yet.
Baby game's going.
Let the record show that, we exited executive session at 7:02. And now I'll need a motion to return to open session.
Make a motion that we return to regular session. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Harvey to return to open session, second by Ms. Farley. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let the record show that by 5-0 vote, the motion is carried. Now, does the superintendent have a recommendation?
Yes, I do. I'd like to go back to my letter that I wrote December 16th, 2022, to recommend Mr. James Payne to be suspended to the end of the 2022-2023 basketball season on March 18th of 2023.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept superintendent's recommendation?
I'll make the motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
We have a motion, do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mr. Angel. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Let the record show by 5-0 vote, the motion carries. Now we'll move on to presentations.
Tonight I asked Jane McCoy, she's our clerk of works, and Roger, the superintendent from Radford and Radford, to give us an update and to answer any questions you all may have with the school building authority addition that we're doing for our middle school students here. And I just told them it would be like around the kitchen table, just have a conversation and make it simple. But keep it less than 2 hours and we'll be good. So I figured Roger would appreciate that, get the sense of humor about it. You want to go ladies first, or you want to go first?
I think that's right.
All right, Jane will go ahead and let her go.
Okay, I printed some pictures. I know you have 10,000 that we can use.
Yes, we do.
But anyway, there's about 8 here, which I wanted to get the materials that are on site in case, anyone hadn't seen those. So, I did not put the rock picture in there.
All over rock.
There's a
I
rock
got you.
picture.
Thank you.
But anyway, the site work, well, let's just go with when everything started. Clearing and grubbing, well, everything was October 3rd, and then the clearing and grubbing started. Site was cleared, and then the undercut started. So we had about 10 rain delays, weather delays, along with the holidays in there. So the schedule has been a little bit behind. The controlled lift started on December the 19th, and Litton Contracting is responsible for bringing in the fill, and they've been doing a good job of keeping up with the materials from the Barrow site. Number 2 is third-party testing, which is being performed by Thrasher. So the lifts are being then rolled and compacted with a sheet soot roller and then a smooth drum, sealed areas. Now, Roger, I got a little schedule today, and I'm sure that's what Kevin was talking about. So if yours is any different, we'll figure it out. But, the storm drain and sanitary installation is scheduled to start, the week of the 17th. Underground utilities, footer excavations should start around the 25th. And then, or the 23rd, I'm sorry. And then concrete should come in for the footers around the 25th. Now, that will vary
Yes, depending on what.
depending on the weather, so it's not a, oh, okay. It's not a, set in stone. The exterior CMUs is scheduled for, the second week of February. And again, like I said, it will depend on the weather. So the payment applications, I wanted to, talk about that for a second, because in the last payment application, there was a lot of materials that are stored on site that have been billed for. So that's why that payment application was so large. Roof decking, trusses, and storm and sanitary pipe, plumbing fixtures. The payments, or the application for payments goes to the SBA and then into the state OASIS portal, and then come back to be dispersed at the board office. And each application will be, will have a lien release, which is for your all's benefit from the contractor. And there will be change orders. There's a couple out there now. There's one coming in because some additional fill had to be taken out. And that was a unit, that was a price per unit on that when the contractor did it. So there will be a change order on that. RFIs, we had, the water line was answered today. It can be abandoned in place, so that's good. And then the road, Roger, I'll let you talk about that. We don't have a clear answer on that just yet, do we?
We're, correct, Jane, we're working, we being the school board and us, along with.
Along with, right, but we do have the surveyor, points on that, correct? Is that correct?
What,
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks, everybody, for a few minutes of your time, or maybe, Dave knows me, I'll probably be, we might have time to, get us an early breakfast. But anyway,
We'll catch some light off.
I'm Roger Hartney, I'm currently the site superintendent for Radford. As Jane minutes ago, I began my efforts here as the site superintendent on October the 3rd, and I won't waste your time but repeating what Jane had said about site setup, bringing in heavy equipment, and et cetera, and stripping out existing sidewalks, topsoil, we say, because there will be an area where, once we're finished with the building and finishing things up, we'll be reapplying the topsoil and seeding and the straw and all that. Soon, it became evident that we had a major challenge to begin the soil removal to a depth of 5.3 meters, depending on the elevation of the top of the ground where we were working, or would be working. To date, and I'm sorry to refer to my notes, but to date, on the removal of the non-acceptable soil, it was 572 dump truck loads. Fortunately for us, the weatherman cooperated most of the time. As Jane had mentioned, we reported 10 rain delays. Some of the rain delays, there's some language where there has to be so much accumulation, but even a half-inch of rain, that, and some know in here already, that working in the ground, even a small amount of rain, you can't do it, because you do more damage to what you're trying to do as opposed to removing. So it's 572 dump truck loads of soil, unsuitable soil removed. There may be a few trucks down the road that, through some excavation of some of the utilities, that we need to remove from the site, and we'll do so. We did start the controlled backfill, and per the specifications and standards, the whole backfill has to be applied one level at a time, 9 inches, no more than 9 inches thick. So we bring it in with subcontractor, with construction, from an approved borough site, which is about 2 miles up the road towards Sandstone, and to the right, Appahala. And, again, it's approved borough site. And, we started our area to the south, which is upriver, and we're currently working our way north. I know that sounds odd, working our way downriver north, or upriver, excuse me. But anyway, we're approximately up to grade now, and what I mean by that is that on top of the controlled field, there'll be a layer of crushed rock, crushed stone, compact 4-inch concrete slab on top of that, where the classrooms will be. And there's some thickened slabs in some certain areas that are required, but mostly 6 inches of compacted stone and 4 inches of concrete on top of that. To date, on the compaction that we've accomplished so far, pardon me, the amount of trucks that we've brought in, if I can find my note, please, has been 696 dump truck loads of soil to be compacted, placed. What we do, the dump truck brings it in, dumps it, our bulldozer levels it out and gets it to approximately 9 inches. Then we can compact it. And as Jane mentioned a moment ago, the third-party inspection service, Thrasher Engineering, which the contract is with you, the school board, they inspect, they use what they call nuclear gauge for the compaction. For the area of the classroom and the gym, et cetera, the compaction has to pass a 98% compaction rate. For anything outside, what we call outside the battery limits of the exterior walls, the compaction rate is acceptable at 95%. Because you have more bearing weight in the school area. Again, I'll relate to what Jane said. We had total 10 work days that we recorded that has prevented us from continuing to work in the dirt. And that's what we're doing now, working in the dirt. Very soon, as Jamie mentioned, we'll be starting some underground utilities, roof drains, stormwater in the area upriver, up next to that, I call it the home ec room.
Oh, ProStar.
ProStar, thanks, appreciate that. Also, from what Jane had mentioned about what we're starting soon is leading to doing some underground piping that's necessary before we start our footer work, is that there's some what we call infill work. In the area where ProStar is, there's a series of a single window, single door and some windows, single door up next to the corridor, the glass window of the corridor, and also another set of double doors nearby. All of those come out, and we'll do what we call infill work. And we infill all those current windows and doors with concrete block. Because our level the compaction we're doing and the levels is coming up to a specified elevation. And in order to do that, we have to take those items out. Plus, there's gonna be classrooms, and those doors and windows will no longer be needed. I spoke with David about it and Chad, and what I spoke to them about is we're gonna have these windows we're taking out, we're gonna have the doors we're taking out. What would you like to do with them? So they're your property. And so we selected a open area, it has a wall around it and a door and a gate, whatever. We have a certain area, it's over on the end of the building, over next to the Summers County Health Clinic.
It's right, it's that rock face behind ProStar on the outside, so
Right.
you can put that in behind stuff where it's not out to be seen and be messed with. And then if we need it,
It has it doesn't have a roof over top of it, but, you know, glass is glass and painted metal is painted metal. It's a good place to put it, it's a good choice on y'all's part. And we'll place all of it there, and hopefully we'll have room, so you might be thinking about, well, it's almost full, we're gonna have two more sets of doors, so, yeah, you might be thinking about what other area might be available. Should be a lot, most of it we should be able to store. Also, inside the existing auditorium, is that, I turned my sound down, I'm sorry. I thought I did.
I did it doesn't work on my phone though, it always comes through.
Sorry, folks. Missed the best part of the movie. But inside the existing auditorium, there are some existing double doors that are removed. There'll be a couple more associated with the new project installed. And that's about it I wanted to talk about. But one thing is that I want to add that our contract with you, our customer, we do pay apps. Jane had mentioned that when we feel we've installed something or accomplished so much and whatever, and it's reviewed by 3 different entities. And having said that, we have subcontractors. We have about 15 different subcontractors that have a contract with us, Radford. And the way they're paid is from Radford and Radford. No other way. They accomplish their work. I keep track, for example, of the number of trucks that they bring in of good soil, or the number of trucks removing soil, and also I'll verify another way, I won't mention. But anyway, to see that they're doing the right thing with their billing, they're billing correctly. And once they're billed, they submit an application for payment, just like we do with our pay apps to you, the school. And we verify all that, and we issue their payment when we receive their application for payment. Now, it's just like if we were to provide one for you folks from Radford and Radford by the 14th of January, and we didn't submit it until 4 days late, then that's not going to quite work so well, because realize it has to be reviewed by the different parties and that it's accurate and whatever. And so we might miss an application payment. So same thing with our subs. They need to submit it on time. And we emphasize, although we haven't utilized a lot of the subs yet, basically quitting with in the dirt. So please understand that we pay them. They do the work for us, we verify, we pay them. In turn, we do the work, we submit it to you, you verify that through, I think Jane is one of the parties that does that too. Want to mention that also that regarding what I'm termed the infill work, or removing doors and windows and putting CMU block in so we can raise up the level of the school, part of the school, is that the corridor that leads from the school to the up of the moon. Corridor that leads from the school to the auditorium or vice versa, that sloped floor, as part of our efforts to install a new junior high, is that floor is removed, and it raises up to the current level of the floor as you would leave to go back to the school offices, the Federal's office. And so there's an area there where the existing ceiling, suspended ceiling, it's on a slope, all that is removed. There'll be be a new door opening cut into the existing wall that will lead to a corridor that leads down actually one corridor leads to two, to access all of the different classrooms for the seventh, eighth, or sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. We're going to, and Al has been instrumental, we had a meeting with David and Chad and Al and myself, and we planned out how we could do this work and not interfere with school operations. And so we have elected to, with their support, to do the work at night. Our employees will be badged, and correct me if I'm wrong, Al, there are 2 janitors that work shift, and we'll work out some hours that we can be productive and do our work, because I think all of you realize that if we're trying to do work in a hallway, 2 hours, and class changes are taking place, they're gonna be in our way or vice versa. And the last thing we want to see is somebody get hurt. That won't happen. So we've elected to work at night. In fact, week after next, the electricians, there are some major conduit runs that they need and want, unless I want them to install in the corridor that leads from the existing electrical panel room over to the new expansion that we're doing. We want to get that work in the hallway finished. We're gonna do that tonight. We're gonna start in a couple of weeks. I would be glad to answer any questions that any of you have. Anybody? Fire away.
When will the removal of the doors happen?
Next week, we're gonna start removing doors and windows. For example, the area, there's a set of double doors that currently lead outside from the auditorium. It will be the south end of the upriver side. And we'll be removing those, and we have the, on-hand materials to be able to do that, mixers and block and all that stuff. We'll remove that, and that'll be our first focus, is to remove those doors and infill the block, because we have not been able to finish the field work outside, because we'd be filling dirt up on the door limits. So that'll be our first challenge, to get that done, so we can complete our field compaction in that area, so that we can continue with our underground services, PVC. There's a couple of storm drain lines, 8-inch, and there's a few 4-inch, and whatever in that general area. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and a follow-up is, and you may not be able to answer this in the chat, buildings is what impact, or maybe Al, what impact will that have on the egress, in case of emergency?
Well, what we do is, they can't go out that way, they have to go out another way. So since they're in the auditorium, they'll go out the other exits. That's just how it has to be at this point in time.
Will you have to will you have to cover the exit signs for that?
Yeah, we will. But right now, I'm waiting until his guys start working, because I don't wanna take away any exits before we have to.
Right.
That's just, they just have to do that.
How often are we using the auditorium right now?
Oh, what?
How often are we using the auditorium?
Daily.
Now, I'm not trying to get into your business, but I've been in there accessing or going through to get to a certain area inside to look at work needed to be done. So I've been in there frequently, and I've seen the class there and one over there. So and so.
This conduit that you're getting ready to run,
Yes, sir.
are we putting power off of the main building here over there, or is there gonna be another?
There will be, in the current electrical room, everything comes out and is replaced, upgraded. You need it because you're gonna be using more power, and therefore you need larger systems. So I think the electrical room is back over, or the kitchen area, over.
So all the power's gonna come in there and it's gonna be
Yes.
conduit depth.
I will say the electrical equipment, the large control panels, electrical equipment are, like everything else in today's world, long lead times. The electricians have, I'm told, have ordered all of that, and don't have any dates. all that is replaced. And that'll come down to a point where we have everything ready to go, and we go into a shutdown, for example, it may be a weekend, or I'm hopeful it'll be done during non-school time, during summer break. And that's what we're gonna try to shoot for our best, and some other things too. There's another item that the, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning units are a long lead item. As soon as our contracts with our subcontractors were signed, they immediately started their takeoffs. And, for example, as Jane mentioned a few minutes ago, we already have the roof steel for the classrooms, fabricated steel, and thank y'all for providing us some room to store that material. We have the steel for the gymnasium, we have the metal decking, classrooms and the gymnasium. We have a new stormwater line that routes all the way around the exterior of the footprint of the addition. We have a gas line on site already. The the subcontractor that is gonna be doing the duct work, I think it's, tell me 95% of it is on site. There's a couple of Sealand trailers in our laydown area that contains all the duct work. So we're gonna have our material here. Block is supposed to be coming in soon. I don't know where I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna have to ask you for a little bit more room, parking space. Apologize, taking parking space, that's up. I know they're hard to come by.
This is the cost part. But anybody have any other?
Yeah, I saw the picture of the metal trusses and the necking, that does seem very premature, but anything that you can get, I understand. Absolutely. You get it wrong, I get it.
It's gotten worse.
What's
It's
funny is
not
we got the
ready.
gym, we got the gym roof. That was funny when I saw that, I said, Roger, and they said they could deliver it. I'm like, no.
Don't say nothing, if they can bring it, don't
I'd
say
rather have
nothing.
it not needed, as needed to not have it.
Another-
One thing about what they said,
Yes, ma'am.
Those 572 dump trucks of dirt,
Oh, no.
are they rehomed in a certain sinkhole in West End?
No,
I'm joking, I know that, I'm joking.
Yes, Roger did that too. Take credit for it.
I'm also curious, did you guys budget for that much dirt in and out? Where we stand on that?
One note about what they did say, they had talked about the third pay app. You all haven't seen that yet. We just submitted it to the state. You'll have it for the approval on the 24th meeting, but it's like $1.4 million. So don't be surprised. We are like aware that it's coming on the 24th.
And just to let you know, either Ms. Crook or myself, we will hand deliver it, or Mr. Kevin Radford said his wife will come and pick it up. We don't want to put that one in the mail. We want that to be hand delivered, and he agreed with that. I said, oh, that's how we get your wife to Sumner County. But I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Crook, because that's a big payout. But School Building Authority was there to begin today with Mr. Miller. He's pretty pleased with how things are going. And his concern is like all of our concerns with the prices of the market. They hope we don't have to come back and ask for more money, but they're at the table because they're hearing these conversations. And we're all trying to make sure we keep costs down, but I don't drive this market. You guys know how that is right now with the market level with the inflation. So, lead times are crazy. We have HVAC that we're trying to get here. That'll tie in with this HVAC, and that's the same when talking gym. Not that this is the same thing, but lead time on HVAC, it's crazy. It's crazy. No, because they knew about this project. They were already on it.
We signed our subcontractors just as early,
Yeah.
as soon as you said, you got it, R&R.
Yep.
We went.
Right after board
Sub-
approval,
subbing out.
they started getting on everything right after board approval. You have any other questions, guys?
I have one last thing, and it's important to all of us. We've worked a total of 62 work days since we began with no lost time injuries, no scratches, no Band-Aids, no nothing. So, I'm proud of that.
That includes Rick.
Includes Rick.
All right.
Yeah, Rick is he's my main man. He's the dozer operator that levels the dirt and then the rollers do their thing on the field compaction that we're doing to control the field. Thank you for your time.
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
When do you think you will know about school buses and parents?
Well, David may help
I
on
can
this, but
answer that, we're not sure right now until we get confirmation from McKinley, because we're trying to figure out, is that all in the plan? And if it wasn't, that becomes an add-on, and then the next question is, do we have enough to get people through with just buses only, or nobody at all? I want buses to take priority, cars can move around a lot easier, so I will get you a full report on that as soon as I know, but today, we called Tom at McKinley before we finished, and he said our guys are on that, and they're finishing up the whole thing today and tomorrow, they're trying to wrap it up. That's a good question, and I can't, I'll just tell you right now, Jay, I don't have a solid answer for you, but as soon as I find out what's going on, I'd like to get, Mr. Booth, bus drivers down here, to say what would work for you all, because they're the ones driving, not me. And I'd rather get their input to tell me how to do something versus me to tell them what to do. They're the ones with the CDL and all those children on the buses. So we'll work it out. It's just like anything else. We're between literally a railroad and a river. It's, our bus drivers do a pretty doggone good job getting around all that. But we appreciate you guys giving us a full report.
Thank you both.
And,
Thank you.
it's been working pretty good. We just asked them to keep the rain away right now.
if you have the time in the future and you'd like to look around, you don't wear your old shoes, because we're in the dirt right now.
Probably after
Come
the
by, and
meeting,
I'll show you around, no problem at all.
after the board meeting, I can take you guys down the hall to kind of show you what he's talking about if you want real quick. It's not a big deal.
But I get to look at it every day practically, because I'm down here to pick up my grandson.
Yes.
It's been interesting to watch, as, you know, when I was still coming in.
Ms. Jones? you wanna get
Right,
ready?
they gotta have something to put it on, don't they?
Well,
There's, one other thing that, David, you might allude to this a little bit, on the east side of the new gym, which is adjacent to the road. There is, a saying I've probably used too many times, there's a proverbial trying to put 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag in that area. We're required by the specifications and standards that any exterior wall of the new addition we're doing, that we come out plus 10 feet from those walls, and we remove that soil because it's unsuitable. And we put the acceptable soil and compact it and whatever. Well, you have that situation taking place that's going to encroach upon that road, existing road. Plus, in that area, there is a 30-inch stormwater line with 4 total manholes over the course of the run, and plus a new water line. And that's why I say 10 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound bag. But we're working on solving that. The school, David and Chad and Radford, and also design. So there's nothing new. You always have things like that happen. We'll work it out.
It'll be a team effort.
Yep,
I'm
definitely.
gonna-
Always
I'm gonna
has
let-
been.
I'm gonna let Roger and Jane get out of here, because Roger, I'm afraid his phone's gonna ring again. So I'll have, Miss.
I was gonna tell you a Jerry Flower joke.
That's, save that for the next one.
All right.
I'm gonna have, Miss Renee Jones, introduce,
Hi, everybody.
work together on their presentation and go from there. So, thanks for your time, guys, and,
No problem.
Dr. Edwards is here this week to work with us, and so we made sure he was scheduled in during this time to give you an update on, what's going on. And, if you guys have any questions, please ask him tonight, when Dr. Edwards is going to do this, because he will do a good job of letting you interrupt him and have a dialogue. You don't care, do you?
Nope.
I think that's the best way to do it, is have a dialogue.
All right, committee folks, what we're gonna try to do is just give you a snapshot, a bigger piece of information, and hopefully give you some clarity on what we're doing that's can have a significant impact on food instruction. So Renee's gonna pull, what I'm sharing with you here on, big screen. And sorry, and I'll just briefly talk through this with you.
If you have an extra, I'll give it to Mr. Haynes
Yeah, it's extra copy.
Okay. You got his.
Emailed those to me.
Renee already emailed them,
Oh, well,
it's on top of things.
sorry to interrupt there, sir.
So what you have in front of you is kind of a overview of a flow process that we go through and trying to get our teachers to operate with. And what you see there at the top is, of course, the academic standards. You've got your West Virginia learning standards, and at each grade level, there's usually 40-plus standards for each subject area or each grade level. And for a teacher to get through 40-plus standards, and I think in algebra there's 60-some, it's next to impossible to do that with fidelity. You just can't get through that much with fidelity in a 180-day school year. So what we do is we look to identify those critical standards or priority standards. To try to shrink that number down and focus on those that are most closely related to the general summative assessment and or the SAT. Then what we do is develop learning targets for each of those standards. And those learning targets are written in child-friendly language. And I'll give you examples in a few minutes here. Then what we like our teachers to do is unpack those learning targets with the students. So explain what they're actually learning. And when the research points to when a child truly understands what the learning targets are, student achievement can go up by 27%. That's pretty significant. So it's really important to be able to do that. Then we look at developing a pre-assessment for the students. We want to know what do they already know about what we're going to teach them. And looking to do an item analysis of that. Which that does is says, okay, we gave them X amount of questions. We looked at what questions students did really well on, where students struggled, and we may find that there are things that they already know that we don't need to spend as much time on. And there are gaps that we need to spend a whole lot of time on. So from there, we develop our instruction. And that's the instruction that will take place in progress monitoring throughout the period of study. And then at the end, we assess again for mastery and do an item analysis. And what happens is here at the end of that unit of study, we go back based on this item analysis and say, okay, where do we still have gaps? What do we have to revisit? What do we have to spend more time on? And how do we differentiate instruction based on some kids knocking it out of the park, some kids are still struggling. So how do we make adjustments within our class so everybody's not getting the exact same thing? Now, if you see the yellow line, I think it's yellow, over here, green, I don't know, yellow, what we do is develop this end of unit assessment up here. So the end of unit assessment is developed prior to the start of instruction. There's a methodology that was brought forward about 20, 25 years ago, maybe, called backward design. And two researchers, McCogg and Wiggins, have researched this and developed this methodology. It's used pretty pervasively throughout our profession. So starting with the end in mind and then building from there. Any questions on that? So if you flip it over, when I talk about learning targets and student-friendly language, these are learning targets, each of those pieces of that flowchart broken down in teacher-friendly language. So what we're trying to do is model what we do with students and model it for the teachers. So each of those correspond to a portion of the flowchart on the other side. Okay? What I'm going to share, thanks, Renee. What I'm going to share with you now are two questions. And both questions cover the same topic. So this is a fourth grade example of a math standard. And if you look at the first question, it's a question that teachers typically answer around the concept of area. So it says calculate the area of the shape below. remember, area equals length times width. You got your two measurements, you've got a shape, children calculated, they put the numbers into the formula, bang, area, we're good. That's a low-level example of that skill. And a whole lot of kids can do that, pretty self-explanatory. Now, if you look at the second question, there's two parts, part A and part B. This hits the same standard, but at a different level of complexity. So as you read part A and part B, you're going to note some very different components to those questions as opposed to question one. Give me a second to look that over. So what we want to do is be able to instruct at a mastery level. Now, I'll give you my definition of mastery. Mastery occurs when an individual can take skills, concept, and/or knowledge and apply it in a new and different situation without being prompted, and where there's some level of, some level of changing condition or some changing variable. The second question satisfies that. If you can do that second question, do you think you can do the first one? Absolutely. If you can do the first one, doesn't mean you can do the second one. This is our goal, is to get kids at that mastery level. We want to improve state test scores. This is where we got to get them. They got to be able to do problems like that. Now, what we're doing in our work, and we've got Al's here and Dr. Green are here, they're working hard on their end to look at teacher assessments, help teachers adjust and modify their assessments to get more questions that look like that. Now, important thing to remember is the first one, you get it right, you get it wrong, okay? The second one, you don't grade it on the first attempt. You're giving students multiple attempts to get through that problem because it's much more complex. Questions out of those two problems.
The question I would have, if I'm thinking like a board member maybe, and don't take this wrong, but if you're not from the education world, the question is, what's the deal with this grading? Are teachers grading this? Are they failing forward? Is there a stretch? How do you grade something, or do you grade it? Because if you're a board member and you get a call and say, well, my teacher is doing something different, and they keep saying redo it, why do they keep getting all these chances? What's going on there? How would you answer something like that, Dr.?
Well, so first of all, you're gonna give a grade for multiple components here. So the student works through this, I got this far, okay, you're gonna get credit for that piece. My belief is always that, okay, then I give that back to the student and I let them try it again. And we give them, maybe have them partner with a peer. It's about learning or about a grade? For me, it's about learning. Grades can come afterwards. So we're gonna give them multiple attempts. There may be some additional instruction based on where they got hung up to help them work through this. But our goal is to give them all the experiences and opportunities that we can to help them work through these problems. These problems take more time. Most of us in school, it was my experience, is when I was in my area, I got a whole worksheet of 10, 15 of these problems. Zip through them, bang. Did I know area? I knew it in that context. When I do this, that's a totally different context. If you think of my definition of mastery, that child has to decipher that there's irrelevant information in there. Which numbers do I use? And I don't say it's an area problem. I don't give you the formula. It's not about tricking kids. It's about getting kids to be able to really analyze a problem and develop those higher order thinking skills. And if kids can, that's what I want my children to be able to do. You go out in the world, everything's not at this level. So the whole concept here is called depth of knowledge, and there is a gentleman who developed this model of depth of knowledge, and we talk about 4 levels. First level is a recall level. It's like saying that the United States is Abraham Lincoln. You either know it or you don't know it. one of the challenges we face is much of education is at a recall level. Level 2 is, I know a rule or pattern. So an example would be if I was doing triple digit subtraction and I have to borrow. Well, if I know the rule for borrowing, if I can do 2 problems, I can do 200 problems. Those level of problems do not require higher order thinking. When we get to level 3, we're talking about application of skills or concepts. So now when you look at these 2 problems, I'm applying the concept of area into a real world problem, a more complex problem. And at the highest level, we're talking about where students are creating new learning based on other previous learning experiences. So they're taking, it might be the students read a story in 3rd grade, and they have to now write the next chapter of that story and say, predict what would happen based on their analysis of the character, their understanding of the plot, the theme, and so on of the story. And that's the highest level. Questions, comments, make sense?
I'm just glad you brought up the point that there was a relevant information in there. I've been out of school for 40 years, and education is not my experience, but I was wondering why we cared how many windows we had in private.
Well, you know what will derail kids is, first of all, kids will look at that and they'll go, well, there's 2, I forget, I can't see here, 2 windows and they're the roof same feet. Oh, 8 and 2 must go in the problem because they're numbers. And then we spell out, we don't give them the number, we spell out, 14 and 10 or whatever, and that throws kids off. I mean, there's so many kids, but I've got districts that I've worked with for numbers. In kindergarten, all they get, for example, on a test are 4 problems. And they're all problems at this level of complexity. Now, did they succeed on the first day? No. But nobody rises to low expectations. We get a false sense of success when we give children a bunch of low-level questions. Now, often parents are happy because the kid comes home and he's got a star or a smiley face on the paper and got them all right. But if you can't take those skills and concepts and apply them in a real-world situation, I think you're really handicapped. Okay, so from there, what do we got next? So we talked about the standards. And what we've done, and this is very complex. Oh, you got them, okay, I see what you got. Okay. Just the top upper here first. This is, cover is a process that we go through to deconstruct a standard. That we go through to deconstruct a standard. And it's a very complex process, but the standards are complex. And if we can't break the standards down to really identify the skills embedded in those standards, then we're going to miss the mark. So every teacher has gone through this process. It's critically important that they do it and have that experience of breaking down a standard. So what we've been working on, as I mentioned, my last audience with you, is that we've been working diligently on the math standards, K-5, and we're very close to getting all of those completed, all the priority standards. So what we've worked on here are those priority standards. This is an example of a deconstructed standard. And what happens is the teachers go through with some coaching the first couple times, then they do a peer review, they're reviewed by the principals, they're sent to Renee's office, Renee sends a select sample to me, I take a look at them, she looks at them. So they're vetted at multiple levels before we say, yep, they're good to go. And when teachers can do this, they truly understand what that standard is asking. So if you go to your next paper, I need it from here. The next thing is, is this paper here, Mastery Matrix. And Mastery Matrix is where they take it. I talked about those 4 levels of complexity. They take that standard and they build questions and learning activities at level 1, 2, 3, and 4. The goal is to try to operate that highest level, because if you're operating at that highest level, most of those 3, 2s, and 1s are already embedded in that learning. So this is an example of a matrix has been built off of that deconstructed standard. Does that make sense? And then the third piece is a assessment, example of an assessment that goes along with the, this ties to the DOK-4. This is a rubric that ties to the DOK-4 level activity. So this is how that becomes, this is how this is evaluated. Does that make sense? So we're trying to get our students to the highest level, level 4 here. So this becomes the assessment for that unit study. So this isn't everything we've been working on, but this is a big piece. And this takes a lot of time, it's a lot of hard work, but I think when our teachers go through this, they get a much deeper understanding of the whole teaching, learning, instruction process, and how we can break those standards down to get the most value for the time we have that we spend on those standards. Questions?
Could you, tell them, real quick what a curveball is?
Curveball is,
You guys see here on the left?
yeah, when I talked about, definition of mastery, I said, well, there's some changing variable or level of unpredictability. The curveball is that changing variable or level of unpredictability. In the example of the 2 problems I gave you, that's that part B, where they now have to recalculate based on new information. So that's a curveball, that's a twist to get them to think differently about that particular problem that they're engaged in. Now, I also want to share with you that thanks to Renee and her son, Lawson did this, right? He was a big help in creating this Google platform where we're storing all these things. So do you want to just quickly explain a little bit about that, Renee, give an overview?
Right, when Dr. Edwards shares important documents or templates, we put it in a shared drive, and all of our teachers have access to this. Any information that we find useful that he shares in his trainings, we add it. And then each grade level, from pre-K through 12, we have the core subjects with the standards that we've deconstructed so far. So if we look at, third grade math, we have the deconstruction of the standard, we have the mastery matrix, and then we also have a unit plan of the assessment piece.
So that's kind of what you have paper in front of you.
So every time that the documents get peer reviewed and double checked, and the principal says it's the final copy, then we upload it to the shared, so the teachers can access this at any time.
So now think about for math, if at each grade level, let's just go K5, there's 40 plus standards, we're doing priority standards, so typically we narrow it down to about 25, 26 standards at each grade level. We're doing this 26 times 6, because you got kindergarten, 5th grade. Then you gotta move to the secondary. What we should really develop is your own curriculum. That's a curriculum, you develop your own curriculum. Schools, districts say, well, we have our curriculum, but it's not a curriculum, they have a textbook series. Textbook series is not a curriculum, it's a textbook series. This is actually developing your own standards-based curriculum off the West Virginia standards. There's not, Dr. Green took you analyzed the textbooks over the summer, last summer, and aligned them to the standards, correctly? Correct?
The math, yeah,
Yeah, so they're, K,
3-5.
3-5. So there are portions of that textbook that are not well aligned to the standards.
Yeah, there are sections in there that are kind of fluff.
And the other thing is, a lot of the textbook series focus heavy on DOK 1, 2. They're not getting to the level of complexity like that second question I showed you. So there are very few districts that get this far, because it's a lot of work. And, due to, the support of the central office team, the hard work of the principals, the hard work of the teachers, made huge progress here.
What I like is if we have new teachers coming out of college, or you're new into the area, you have all this information that you can get information from that's based on ownership of our county versus, what do I do? I mean, if you don't know when you're right out of college, this will help you and give you some feeling of confidence versus a textbook, because a textbook will give the easies, but this is really dialed in, plus our teachers, we got some really talented people, they're doing a nice
One of the
job.
questions that I was gonna have for you is, are we looking towards you potentially passing the torch? And I guess that's
Yeah,
a little bit of that.
this is moving us in that direction.
We also have to remember though that research shows that professional development has to be ongoing and sustained. So as educators, we are constantly learning new tricks of the trade and how to be better at our jobs. So it'll be ongoing.
And we haven't tackled language arts yet. We put the focus on math, but as they learn, as teachers and the principals start to get more familiar with the process, it speeds up. First time they deconstruct the standard, I think it's overwhelming for most people. But as they go through it and get used to it, they really, it does move a lot quicker. So if you move more into language arts, I think it'll move a lot quicker because they've had the experience doing the math.
We're at 2.5 years now. So it takes 3 to 6 years really. What I'm excited about is I'm really excited about this year's test scores. I really am. I think we're going to be meeting our goals to move in that direction of 5% growth. I hope I'll be a little disappointed if we don't. 2 to 5% is reasonable to ask for, because you can't ask for, if you're at a lower level, to jump up to the highest level. You have to look at the ladder rung again. You gotta go one ladder rung up. So that's the goal for all those kids. So if you're a kid that gets mastery, partially mastery, then we need to get them up to mastery. If you're a kid that's below mastery, we need to get them up to partial. You have to take that where they are and see if we can move them up. So that's what we're trying to do with all this. We're also trying to get teachers to record themselves, doing a great job, whether it's classroom management to good teaching. It just takes time to build all this up, and once we do, we'll have a treasure trove of information for people to get that's 100% free for them to use.
The other thing that you mentioned, Mr. Morville, is that I've been working with, Kristen Richmond, and I've been working on Christy, Schaefer as a specialist, and we've got a group of lead teachers who are identifying, we're looking to identify probably about 20, high-yield instructional strategies that, research points to as being very effective instructional strategies that will be woven into this. So that's a critical piece as well. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I wanted you to kind of get a feel for, these pieces and what it looks like and the complexity of this. And again, most people don't get this far because they don't put the work in. And, but those who do reap the benefits. Any other questions?
One other question that I did have that sort of answers as well is, unfortunately, we have a decent amount of turnover. And just wondered how we go about catching up those replacement teachers, but I guess that's kind of the same.
That's a piece of it, of course, that's a piece of it. New people come in, we want to get them engaged in this process too, as quickly as possible. Turnovers are it's a reality of life. Obviously, the more we can limit turnover, you folks have been fortunate to really get some really strong people come into the county and, goals, obviously, them. But when if you've got enough of a critical mass of teachers who understand this, when new people come in, they're able to support these people. Then, of course, we get your specialists, you get 2 specialists now, a secondary and a primary grade specialist. They're a big asset to help get teachers on board as well. And all the principals and central office team, because I made central office team all of this too. So they weren't off the hook, so, because they need to understand the process.
I think Ms. Jones looked at me cross-eyed when I first started this process. I think she's a believer now. It's good for our staff to have good collegiality and to also keep in mind, we ask kids to do this stuff all the time. Why aren't we, you guys stay sharp. And, I had no idea that Lawson helped out with this. I'll tell him thank you next time I see him. Thanks for doing that, Mr. Jones. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. If you have questions anytime, just let me know.
Am I supposed to meet?
Great, good, man.
Do what?
Good?
Where are you at tomorrow, start the day?
At the STEM lab with, I think I've got the lead teachers for in the morning and saying.
I'll probably swing by and say hi.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to public comments. Moving on to approval of minutes.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes. December 27th.
We have a motion by Ms. Harvey. Second by Mr. Rhodes. Approve the minutes for the December 27th, 2022 regular meeting. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Abstained? The record shows that by 5 votes. Now, this is to approve of bills. There are just vacant sound bills, right?
Archie Rogers.
No RT Rogers?
There is.
Okay. Yeah. Let the record show that Mr. Bergen has accused himself. And
Make a motion that we pay Archie Rogers and Stephen Town. A second.
there was a motion by Ms. Harvey and a second by Ms. Bartlett. That would pay RT Rogers, Staples Town. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Let the record show by 4 votes. The RT Rogers safe and sound.
I make a motion that we pay the remaining bills.
Second. Motion by Ms. Barlow. I second. We'll pay the remaining bills. Is there any further discussion?
Can I ask some questions on a couple of them, just for more information? Probably Lauren can shed some light on. Crisis Prevention Institute.
That is for our CPI training, for our teachers to recertify. I don't know how many recertify.
It's usually every 3 years, I believe, and we have, 2 trainers going to get their recertification, and then each year they provide training for our staff.
That's crisis prevention, Ms. Harvey.
And restraint training.
Restraints, it covers us, liability wise, and by law, we have to be certified by some entity for that.
Thank you. And then, David G. Allen.
David G. Alley. Is that a show at one of the schools?
Yes, it was for,
Is that volleyball?
hold on just a second, and I can tell you exactly. It's not- I have the check register, but not the other.
And while you're looking that up, really just
That's who we get our cleaning supplies from. And
And SHI International,
just a second. It looks like, David G. Alley it's, Dave Glenn, that radio guy, and did something, I think, at the high school. I can't pull up the detail on it on this computer.
It was probably for a incentive.
Yeah.
Because I know that Talkit used him one time before, and it was for a incentive reward.
And the other one was SHI.
and then Sound Solutions.
Is that technology?
SHI is technology information, or technology. Daniel's doing a lot with, updating our, the sound systems down here, and wiring, and that sort of stuff. And what was the last one?
It was, Sound Solutions. It's the same thing.
Sound Solutions is the same, that's a Daniel.
Yeah, cause this building's finally updated with all the phones and speakers. That's all, he did all that, when he came in tonight, that new finger, and then you also have the new key card, trying to make it safer in this building. But we got a little ways to go with new technology, because of adding the new middle school one, so, I want it to all drive up now.
Any other discussion? Can we have a motion by Ms. Farley and a second by myself? All in favor, say aye. Aye. No? He's opposed? He's sorry.
Okay. I heard you wrong, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Let the record show by 5-0 vote, the motion carries. All right, now moving to HB, approved purchases of $20,000.
Basically, if Dr. Knott was here, she would tell you, this is, the IDEA is a federal funding for us to get services. So this, we have 2 students with sign language.
I think so, yes.
So, this provides for a couple students in our school district. And, it's funded by the federal government to provide these services. And then Apple, well, that's a company that's pretty good with technology, iPads.
Yeah.
They have one price, they don't really differ with that. We can use federal money to provide those iPads.
I'll make a motion that we approve both purchases over $20,000.
Have a motion by Mr. Brogan, second by Ms. Harley. We approve these purchases over $20,000. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Let the record show by 5-0 vote, motion carries.
David Alley is the Talkit.
Now we'll move to discussion and possible action to schedule an all-day work session in 2023 with BOE members and central office staff.
I think what we could do is table it, because I think we're gonna wait until after the February school building association. We have that in February, 17th and 18th. We had this on here because the last board meeting, we discussed it.
Right.
And we talked about email on that, but I think the decision's been made to just postpone it until after the SBA.
Motion.
I'll make a motion that we table the
There you go.
discussion for the all-day work session.
Okay, have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Ms. Farley to table this until after the February 17th, 18th meeting with the state representatives. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let the record show by 5-0 vote. We have voted to table it.
Real quick on that, guys, not taking up too much time, but, couple of you should have had sticky notes on your folder. If you had a sticky note, it was about registering for the school board association. Just email Denise or myself, and we'll get you registered. You don't have to say which one you are, we don't call you out. Anyway, you should have got a sticky tab, and if you're not sure, just email Denise or myself.
All right. Moving on to C, discussion possible actions to put the
Yeah.
following policies up to comment.
I will make a motion that we put all, what is that, 10 policies, that are listed here on the agenda out for public comment.
Just to them.
There, the 10 policies, there are 1, 2, 3 that, are being considered for repeal. So if those go out for public comment as they are, if the board approves that, then the recommendation is to repeal those 3 policies because they're not needed.
Okay.
And then of the other 7, 6 of them, have no recommended changes. And those, are, each cover sheet will show that, and then there's only 1 of the 10 that has any changes to it, and it was just on the student publications, and it was rewording the first sentence of the second paragraph, just for clarifications. It currently says, basically in general, school publications students should be allowed to print what students want to publish. It's kind of a general statement that I think's been around for a while. So we just tweaked that a little bit to say, in general, those publications are designed to promote student expression, but they need to be monitored, of course, and made sure that they're, so it's a tweaking of the first sentence of that. But in general, these are pretty non-eventful revisions here.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Purvis, second by Ms. Spurlock. Mr. Biscuit's on review. Is there any further discussion?
I'd just like to ask, where are we on the progress of this? Are we nearing the end of the road?
We should be. I think there's a handful still left. I'd say we'll have them done by this spring. We'll try to keep, bringing them to you in bunches, like this, probably 10-ish, so they're not too overwhelming, and we should finish them up this spring. That's for you. We've added some additional policies that you all didn't have, beforehand as well, kind of along the way. Someone has said, hey, could we get a policy on this or that? So we've done those too.
Well, just to let you guys know, I've asked Trey to look at a policy about school resource officers. A lot of resource officers in schools do wear body camera. I just want to make sure, I don't have a problem with it, but I also see the other side of it where people say, do they really need to wear it? It's a back and forth. I've asked counties, it's like a 50-50, some do, some don't. A lot of them don't have a policy unless Mr. Morone corrects me on that, but I think it's so new with this, the cameras on a cop or an SRO going into a school is a policy that I think needs to be looked at a little bit more serious, you know? I don't think it's a bad idea for them to wear it, but I also don't know, is it a good idea? I don't know. That's why I think it's a good discussion, the policy on that policy.
I got that request, so I'll get
I guess if they're going for counseling, that would be an invasion of privacy or something to that effect.
You see where I'm going with it, yeah. And, you know, and the other thing is, we all, not only have students being filmed, but you also have employees, and I don't want anything to go against something with a collective bargaining agreement that I don't know, it just needs to be discussed. It is a very gray area, so, yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? Now, motion by Mr. Perkins, second by Ms. Farley. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So the record shows that by 5 votes, motion to put these policies out for public comment was passed. Okay, D, discussion of possible action to MOU between Summers County Schools and Summers County ARA.
Working with Marcia Hicks, yes, she's been my secretary, now she works at the hospital. She's already very familiar with this, so she sent me the boilerplate of what you all in past boards agreed with the hospital. It's just giving our students an opportunity to go to the hospital, get a rotation with those life experiences. And, you talk about curveballs, and Dr. Edwards, you go into a hospital, you're gonna learn a lot of things that aren't by the book. You just never know what's gonna come through those doors in a hospital. So, this is a great experience to continue, and it's just an agreement with the hospital. I like to continue that.
I'll make a motion that we approve the MOU with Summers County Schools and Summers County ARH.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brody, second. To approve this MOU between Summers County Schools and Summers County ARA. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, let the record show that by 5 votes, motion carries. Okay, moving on to personnel items. Superintendent recommends approval of the following personnel matters. Now, do we need to take any of these out separately?
Unless you could be influencing by being a relative or any, unless you're related to these people. Just real quick before you go, I just wanna go over this real quickly. Christy Shaker, you see, she's resigning because she's got a new job coming up at this building. Yeah,
She's not leaving completely.
No. It's just making it more official now because she can start moving, because once she moved, and now we hired Mary Kate to take her spot, now we have to have someone take Mary Kate before she can move, and we do have a person that is, well, there she is, Ivy Reed, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so basically what we're saying is, to make this all happen, what effective dates, you can see the dates on there as we make these moves. Mr. Sampson, I think he's gonna go work for RT Rogers. He's going in the private sector. He tried out public ed, he likes it and all, but he likes the private sector even more. Anyway, that's all I know. We had an exit interview with him yesterday, and he's got the fee right now. He'd rather go work as an accountant or something with math, not teaching math, but math skills with RT Rogers. And then the other people you can see here, Samantha Jones, the committee has recommended to me, and I'm recommending to you, we need a social worker full-time at the school, but this social worker will also work with Gear Up. So those middle school kids, we can focus on them now to get them to think about life outside of high school when they get there, about looking at going to, working with Concord University to be exact, as we look at, college education or something outside of school, in a traditional setting that they're used to. What's life after these walls, and help those kids out. And then the other people, those are, trying to look at this. Those are just positions that need to be filled. And you can see the effective date on the second one. What's going on with the to be announced or to be determined there?
There's a student she works with that we need to transition with some care.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. And then on the back side, just try to get more STEM to our kids. We left the board office and created that STEM lab. I want it to be used more. So I talked to the principals about it. We've come up with a schedule. We talked to Mr. Boone. Now we have a schedule for Target and Jumping Branch to do a rotation to use that building in an area. Their transportation is walk across the parking lot. That's about it there. So we're talking about 2 elementaries to get them to that location to do more STEM initiative. The principals have worked out a schedule with Christy Shaker before she left. So now Mary Kate knows what's going on. This is gonna be exciting. We're gonna get more STEM activities, and I'd like them to come here and do some demonstrations with you all, or we have a board meeting there and have them give some demonstrations.
So,
I think that's all I have to say about that.
superintendent.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Brogan, second by Mrs. Farland. To approve these. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Let the record show by 5 votes. Motion carries. Okay, superintendent's report.
Good news, the Patriot team, if you were at the groundbreaking ceremony, if you know the state superintendent, one of those kids that come for a board meeting, well, instead of a board meeting tomorrow, I think it'd be better to do it on the 20th. On the 20th is the state superintendent meeting with all the superintendents in the state, plus some people. There'll be more more people for them to demonstrate what they can do with the flag. So they're gonna do the Star Spangled Banner. Larry's gonna make it happen with Angel Gum. There's 20 kids, part of the Patriot team, so all 20 will go, but not all 20 will perform. But that's a good thing. It's kind of like a basketball team. You know, play, I can get about 5 or 6 of you out there. So what we're gonna do is, to get all of them included, is they can't do the floating of the flag, but they can lead the pledge and they can sing the Star Spangled Banner. We'll make sure that we videotape that so we can bring that back to you. I think it'll be exciting for our kids to showcase their talent. And, I told Mr. Roach, look, I want the year to start off with a bang. I want my kids to be part of it. And we're coming to Charleston whether you want me there or not. We're coming. He said, Mr. Ward, is that when those kids hold the flag at the opening ceremony? Is that correct, sir? I said, yes, it is. He goes, I would be so proud for you guys to come down. He goes, we talked about that on the way back. And those kids knew the state flag, or the American flag, and they had such respect for it. So I worked with Larry. And Larry and his kids gave me a flag when they did that way back when. So I told them, if we don't have an extra flag, let's use mine, and we'll give that to the state superintendent and say, that flew in Summers County. Can you fly that over the Capitol building? So we're gonna make that request, and I hope that fulfills the obligation. Those kids are excited, guys, and this
So
is.
they're not gonna get the fold flag with it?
They are. They're gonna fold the flag, not all 20.
Okay.
But 5 or 6 of them, but they'll all get to do the Star Spangled Banner and sing. Larry Cochran, I'll introduce him, and Angel Gum. We'll talk about the Patriots. I'll let him talk about that, but I also want to give a high note to the community schools piece, because the community schools piece is huge, and I want to keep that going, guys, and we want to highlight that of our students, and I already told Ted Kula that he might want to come to that, because his daughter, she has that memorized, and you don't get her way, man. She controls. She tells those other kids what to do. It's kind of, I don't know what grade she's in, but I know she knows how to tell
There's
people
a
what to do.
whole lot of Bible in that Bible, and that flag folding, so.
There is.
Lay it on 'em.
Yeah, there is. Work session, that'll be on the next, this month. We'll do 4 to 5:50 like we did last time at the, we call it home ec, now I'm forgetting, Pro Star. And I believe, I want everybody to know publicly that, the Farleys are gonna provide, you said you're your husband? Seriously? Okay, so, is he there?
Yeah.
Okay, looks like, you're signed up, big guy.
I heard.
Let us know what we need to bring in, 'cause you guys don't, I mean.
Well, you said you were gonna provide dessert.
You found deer meat?
We're
Oh.
making venison chili and bacon cheeseburger soup and cornbread.
Oh my, we're not gonna get any work done. Who cares? Okay, that sounds pretty good. Okay, the central office, I think I got an event coordinator named Lauren Crook. She'll make sure we bring in desserts, I guarantee you that.
I got you covered.
We'll cover that, and drinks. Also, want to let you guys know, Larry talked about the work session, we got that, we talked about that earlier. The other thing that we're gonna have is for you to get your calendars. Last year, the teacher and service of the year bank went really well. This year, we're gonna add one thing to it, because we can. Our county can do what we wanna do when we recognize people. We have people in our county, and I'm gonna use this as an example. We have like our free tips, we have specialists, we have people that aren't necessarily service, they're not necessarily professional in teaching in a classroom, and they're not administrators, they're those tweener people. I don't know what it's called, tweeners, and so what we'd like to do is that about 26 people?
24, I think.
24, we want to honor those people because they'll never get to be honored because they have a job description that really doesn't fit in those other two. So I would like to use that time to honor more people because we have good, hardworking people here. I can't say anybody has a better attendance than Bo. Don't know though. 27 years, others never missed a day. But that's the thing, we need to celebrate that. And anyway, long story short, I want to try to invite some retired people that recently retired back so they can still be in the, you know, be at a banquet. It's a fun day to celebrate, and I think it went over really well. So we got the date down for you all here at this building, and it'll soon be April 27th. I know the days are gonna get longer. I swear that's what I've been told numerous times this time of year, but, and then the last thing, guess what tomorrow is? The first day of 60 days of, you wanna guess what it is? Legislation. So I tell you that because I'll be talking to the people we vote into office and let them be aware of some things for our point of view. When you have that SBA meeting that we'll all be attending, I'll be there too those few days, there's gonna be updates on all that stuff. Plus, I think it might be a good time for us to go over, across the street and say hello and see how things are going. Because when we vote people in, we're allowed to have conversations with them. Don't people do that to you all? Cool. It's okay to do that. And we don't need to tell them things that are going wrong. We want to tell them things that we do appreciate them doing. We have to tell them good job once in a while. Because I know you guys don't get told that, so I appreciate what you guys do. If nobody else thanks you the rest of this year other than me, I challenge people right now out there on that camera, please thank the board members. I know, but I don't think it's done enough because people don't want to tell you stuff that's not working well. There's a lot of good going on in the school system, and you know, Dr. Edwards touched on that. We got a building project we're working on. We're gonna make some people unhappy with getting to and from, but it's temporary. It is very temporary. When you look at 24-25 school year, we're gonna have kids in that building that are gonna be 6th grade right now in the 8th grade for their first time in that building. So it's gonna be exciting. Those kids are in 4th and 5th, they'll be the next 6th and 7th, you know, so it's exciting. And, we're moving forward, but, anyway, legislation starts tomorrow, day 1 of 60. I'm done, sir.
Okay, well, I had asked Mr. Miller to give the board an update on the AED.
Oh, sorry, Lance. Okay. Yeah, right now.
Let everybody know.
Yeah, right now, Dina Pavant, our school nurse, basically is in, I don't say she's all in charge of it, but she's the one that keeps an eye on all that equipment. AED, and Mr. Broder, correct me if I'm wrong, they have battery lights on them, and then the what do you call those, the shockers? The defibrillator, those have to be, you know, replaced. So everything that we have with AED, Dina makes sure everything's up to date. So at this point in time, we're good to go. We're good to go. But those need to be checked yearly because the electrodes, that's what it is. Thank you. Shockers.
And the amount of AEDs we still have,
We have,
two at the high school.
we have the adequate, we have like located, like the gymnasium is one area you must have those because you've seen that with athletes. I've seen the video of a 13-year-old volleyball girl just, their heart is giving way and not beating anymore. But, yeah, we have them at all the schools. But do you want more detailed report the next board meeting? I can do that.
I'd like to have,
Sure.
see where we're at, make sure all of them's functional and,
Yeah.
working correctly. I think, you know, what we seen on that ball game last Monday, it was,
Yeah.
I sold the one that they've got down at the health center, at the front, or the fitness center down here in town. And it has literally brought somebody back, so it's.
Yeah, it's, well, we take in everybody, whether you're from here or you're a visiting person watching a game, you don't know what adult has a health issue.
right.
You know, you just never know. You never have to use it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you reminding me, sir, but I'll talk to Chad about getting us an update. We can do that. So I'll put that as on discussion of next board meeting.
Okay. Okay, up next, discussion of the next agreement. Anybody have any items they, anything you need to add right now?
Are they gonna get that in AED update comment? Okay.
All right, that brings us to item 12. Adjourn. Time's now 8:34. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
He didn't ask for it.
Have fun, Greg.